Hi there, everybody. Hi, I'm Maria Phillips. I'm the Creative Director for Direct Response Television at WPNC, and I'll be kicking off our new series of 10 top tips in 20 minutes. And my session today is all about creating successful DRTV. So I've been in the business for a long time. I've been involved in DRTV ads for 30 years. I was there pretty much at the outset of DRTV, and really learned a lot over the years. So hopefully the tips I'll be sharing with you today will be really useful. I get to do the fun stuff because I'm a creative, and I know there's a lot more many bigger issues with DRTV strategy and media. But what I want to share with you today is some advice around making and putting together TV ads and messaging. And actually, lots of these tips are really about getting back to basics, because I think with DRTV, we kind of all know the basics, but we forget them as we go along the journey. So the first tip is, I would say the most important one really, which is really think about your proposition when you're briefing your creative agency or your creatives in-house, and think about how you can make it as life-transforming, as big as possible, that key thought that's at the heart of the adverts. And the reason it's so important for TV is TV is a huge medium. It's a big medium. It's an emotional medium. It's an entertaining medium. It's a distracting medium. So to give your DRTV advert a fair chance, you've got to actually really have something very powerful and emotional to sell. So, not every charity, though, has what we would call a life-saving proposition, which we know is really important to DRTV. So, for example, Médecins Sans Frontières are doctors who actually go out in the field and they save lives, a fantastic cause, and they have amazing medicines that need paying for. So that ticks the box straight away. Also, there's WaterAid. So WaterAid is a charity that we actually created one of our first DRTV ads for them, their first DRTV ad, many years ago, and they've been on TV ever since because they have a really powerful proposition, life-saving proposition, which is dirty water. Tragically kills many children even to this day, but it's a really simple thing to do, which is to change the water. So again, that gives us a really strong starting point for an amazing proposition. However, not every charity have got such clear-cut life-saving propositions at the heart of what they're about. So giving you a couple of examples here. And by the way, these are screenshots to adverts that we've produced, and along with this email there'll be a link to the actual adverts, so you can have a look at them and see the whole ad in full. So the Plan adverts, Plan are a child sponsorship organisation. They do amazing work. But child sponsorship's been around for a very long time. So, one of the things we were tasked with was a new TV ad that would really sort of bring to life emotionally what is at the heart of being a sponsor. And basically, the brief to us, and it was a fantastic brief, was, child sponsors really genuinely help young girls and boys to fulfill their dreams, because they give them an education and they give them chances in life that they wouldn't otherwise get. So our proposition was built around being a dream maker for a child who needs sponsoring. And that really was a great springboard to an ad that was very emotional and very successful. And then the final ad I just want to share with you, Sense, is one that I often talk about because it's a really tricky subject. It's about deaf blindness. Now, Sense do amazing work, but they don't actually cure a deafblind child. They don't suddenly miraculously help them to see perfectly and hear perfectly. So how do you come up with a life-transforming proposition for a charity like Sense? Well, when we dug deep, we saw that so much of their work was around real one-to-one work with children and using simple things like sensory toys, which just gave them that very first step to sort of embracing and connecting with the world around them. And that really helped us with our whole thinking for Sense, creating a really dramatic, life-transforming moment around the moment that child really connected with the outside world. So these are just some examples, but I would say think really hard about your key thought. What is it about it that's going to make your TV audience respond? Tip 2 is a very simple principle. It was one that was given to me when I first started out. the keep it simple, stupid principle. We all kind of think, well, that's so obvious. It is really obvious, but boy, can you forget it when you embark on a TV journey. It's really, really easy to overcomplicate it. And I would just say to you, please, please, please remember, this is the start of a journey with your audience. You don't need to bombard them with everything about you as an organisation. Give it time, give it space. What you need them to do now is to start connecting with you, to give a gift, and then as they become a donor, you can give more about your inside story, but keep it simple. The other thing I would say is keep it single-minded. You know, be really ruthless about what the one key thing is that you want your ad to achieve. What's a primary action you want your audience to take? Well, we know, of course, now that there's lots of calls to actions like web, search, text, phone. They probably all need a mention, but, you know, one of those you'll want to hero, and that's the one that you should perhaps, you know, speak out loud, make bigger, you know, direct them on the one that you want them to take, because otherwise they won't take it. And, you know, stick to one amount. Don't ask them too much of them. Don't give them lots of different amounts to respond with, or an RG ask or a kind of a cash ask. Again, it's all a bit confusing. So think about single-mindedness. And finally, of tip 2, be straight talking. I wouldn't recommend teasing. I wouldn't recommend being too clever with your advert. Yes, you want to stand out, but if you sort of tease your audience along and only reveal at the end that you want them to actually give a gift or become a donor, that may be too late. So I would suggest that you always talk with passion and directness. You need their help, so tell them. Tip 3, those of you who already work with us will know that this is something that we follow very passionately, which is heart, head, hand. And this is the approach for the whole ad. So these are 3 key ingredients that need to go in your TV advert. It's about emotion, making people feel. It's about a rational argument as well, because, you know, it's not enough just to feel sad about the plight of whatever your story is, but you want people to actually understand that you are the organisation that can make the difference, that can help. And that is why they should give their money to you. And it's about hand, which is you don't want your audience just to go, well, that's a jolly good advert. I'll have a little think about that for the next month or so. What you really need people to do is to take action, and to take action soon. So what we're going to do is look at each of these 3 areas in a little bit more detail, and I'll talk you through some examples. So, well, it won't be a surprise that I believe, and I'm sure we all believe, that emotion is really about being the beating heart of your ad. TV is a very emotional medium. Film is an emotional medium. And it's really, really important that you engage your audience emotionally. And the way to do that bluntly is often through footage, because TV is all about, you know, the visual. Yes, the script is very important, and it adds a lot of empathy too, but you do need to have that strong footage to you know, really make your audience share, you know, an empathy and emotion with you. So just some sort of thoughts here around it. I would say don't be afraid to show genuine need. And I know sometimes charities get a bit anxious about that, and they don't want their ads to be manipulative, and I can totally buy that, you know, or exploitative. But if you've got genuine need, and it's been called, you know, documentary style, so we're not talking about it being set up, I think you should feel proud about showing it. Share it with your audience. You know, treat them as adults. That, you know, let them see what the issue is and how they can help. It may affect what time your ad goes out, but hopefully, and it certainly may not be able to be around children's programs, but, you know, showing that need is just such an important part of your ad. I wouldn't try and water it down if you have it. Eye contact is something that's been around for a long time, and when I first started out making TV ads, there were lots of eye contact shots, one after the other. They've become a little bit less fashionable now, and I can see why. You know, they can seem a little bit set up, a little bit manipulative, but I would say don't underestimate the power of eye contact with your audience, between somebody who needs help and your audience. It's about human connection, and it really does draw them in. But I would say always, when you're looking for shots, always think about it in context. So not just an isolated shot of the child in limbo, for example. You know, put that child in context with their mother, or against a setting that shows their wider environment. and don't try and set it up too much. I mean, I really think that is not the way to go in this day and age. It's always about a sense of reality, I think, for charity DRTV ads. A sense that these are real people that I'm helping. These are their real stories. But I think what's really, really important is that even if you can't get the real people, then basically and you have to use actors, then you can make actors feel and look and feel very, very real if you do it with kind of delicacy and use a particular sort of documentary style. So it just brings it closer to your audience and it doesn't create barriers. But I would say, even if you're using actors, always make the heart of the story true. Base it on real stories and real people. It's very important to have that sense of connection. And remember, emotion can also be really uplifting and inspirational too. So, it doesn't always have to be about a sad emotion. I love putting joyful and uplifting emotions in our ads. And one of the perfect examples, if you're doing a will guide or something like that, or a legacy advert, people who are leaving a legacy need to feel inspired to leave a gift. So, that's why you're tapping into something really amazing, uplifting and joyful. So that's equally important. Let's come on to the solution part, which is the head part of your ad. And that's something that creatives tend to do as a bit of a, oh, do we have to? Because, everyone gets really involved in the emotional element of it and really sort of like pushing the heartstrings. But, the solution is, we've got to talk about, where the money goes and how we're spending the money. But actually, I think it's really important that we talk about this part of the ad with equal passion. The work you do is amazing. The way you spend your donors' money is incredible, and it's really thoughtful. So, say it with passion, build it up. So I would say, let your compassion and humanity shine through, and nobody does that better than the Salvation Army, who are a very compassionate and humane organisation. And you can do that through some of the footage you show, people connecting, maybe your workers and people that you help connecting, sharing a moment. £19 isn't just about a blanket, it's about something more, it's about that connection. Solution stats can be very powerful in the right context. I'm not a great fan of statistics in adverts, certainly spoken, particularly if they are, for example, need statistics. Millions of people are going hungry, for example, because it almost becomes so big a problem and it just becomes a faceless, humanless problem. So I prefer to talk about individuals in sense of need. But when it comes to solution, if you've got some fantastic achievements that you've done and it's really tangible, don't hide that light under the bushel. Show it, share it, show how great the work is that you've done and the difference you've made to the lives of people. And don't just hide it in the corner as a small caption. Make it a big thought. Shopping list items are important. We know. Again, we've done testing. Particularly if you're asking for a small amount like £5. So tangible things like clean clothes, hot meals, soap work very well. But for the advert in case of point here, which is for care, we're talking about a refugee called Dana who had a terrible story, really heartbreaking, and she just needs a bit of help. And the way that we brought those items to life was in our advert is we say that they're just small human touches. They mean so much when you've lost everything. And that feels a very important part to say it's the humanity versus the tangibility. And then finally, it's great if you can find ways to bring your audience closer to your solution, because so often it's the charity or yourselves telling your audience about what the solution is and sharing it as a voiceover. So we were lucky enough, we've planned to do an advert where the entire advert was spoken and filmed by the children. So they talk about how wonderful having clean water is. There's no voiceover from plan explaining to the donor that that's the case. So not every ad can be like that, we understand, but just think of ways that you can bring the solution to life and bring it closer to your supporter. Tip 6, and this is all about action and the hand part. And we think that you have to work really hard at getting people to take action. Because actually, when you think about it, they're probably distracted, they're probably watching the telly, they've got other things on their mind. You've got to stop them in their tracks, and you've got to get them to actually get out of that mindset and actually get into giving. We call it sitting forward as opposed to sitting back. So a lot of TV is sitting back TV, you know, it's there to entertain you and make you laugh, and great programs or fantastic box sets. Also, brand ads can often be sit back adverts. Wow, did you see that amazing advert that John Lewis did? It was so cute, or whatever. But actually, we don't want our audience to notice how great our ad is. We want our audience to sit forward and go, I need to do something, I need to help. And this is an example of an advert for London Air Ambulance, which is all about getting the ambulances to the point where an accident is by the pilots as quickly as possible. So the whole ad was built around timings and the second countdown and alarms, really, really action oriented. We find that actually hard-nosed techniques can work really well in getting people to act. One of the ways of doing that is through title screens that have your bold calls to action in there and the ask amounts, really loud and proud. And it kind of breaks up the emotion. You'll see if you look at the ad that we did for Concern, it's a very emotional ad about hunger. There's some really strong footage, really heart-wrenching. But what actually we did was we then broke up the ad and reminded the audience, we're not just sharing this with you to make you feel sad, we're sharing this with you because we need your help. So it's a good kind of halfway point often between problem part of the ad and the solution part of the ad. And then if you move down to children with cancer, they're a great example of how having a really simple positive keyword can work so well for you. Children with Cancer advert we did here was based all around the lovely story of the end of treatment bell, that children all get to ring when they finish their cancer treatment in the hospital. And it really brings the research that children with cancer do to life. It's really tangible and it's lovely. So of course we made the keyword bell. It ticks all the boxes, it's short, it's simple, and it's very positive. And also don't forget going for a unique search term so that people know exactly which charity that they are searching for. It's an obvious thing, but sometimes we forget to put the charity's name there up front before the search term. And then the final point in this section, I would say, is at the end of your advert, please, 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 please try not to let your audience off the hook. I know it's tempting. I know it's nice to end on a happy note, but particularly as we've been through all the wonderful things that you do and the way the audience can help. But actually, if you end on it all being sorted, it does bring them down a little bit and make them a little bit less likely to want to respond. So I think what we try and do is we end on hope, but we certainly do not end on the audience on a happy ending as such. You know, we need your help to make more of this happen. And that's really important. By the way, over the years, we have tested very positive endings versus more hopeful stroke needy endings, and the needy ending does always outpull. Tip 7, the brand word, which is so important in everything about your organisation and also in DRTV. But I would just say don't confuse DRTV with BRTV. Brand plays a really, really important role in differentiating you from the competition. You know, what is it about you that makes you different? What's your personality? What is it about your mission, your vision, everything? But I wouldn't let that take over the primary objective of response. This is a DRTV ad, and it's really important that you still have very strongly in there that sense of need. And it can sometimes be a little bit easy to get so excited about the solution and the brand values that the need becomes somewhat watered down. And I would say also just beware of tasteful captions around the whole sort of section around the solution. And quite often, you know, creatives and brand clients, and they've got their brand book, say, oh, well, the caption must be in such and such a point size, and it must be this colour, and it must be ranged left. I mean, of course, we always want to abide by the brand guidelines. They've been, you know, they're your story, they're your storybook, if you like. But don't forget, TV is a very specialist medium, and if those captions clash with the story that's going on around, and if they distract from the response, and I think what one needs to do is adapt them, keep the essence of them, but adapt them for DRTV. Also, please, please, please don't apologise about asking for money, because that's why this advert is out here. So be loud and proud of it, and don't make your calls to action too subtle. You know, right at the end of the ad, have your calls to action on throughout, whether in a panel or some kind of reminder. You know, we don't just want to surprise the audience at the end. They need to know what we're asking them to do, so don't hide it away. And I really believe that the best DRTV really can be responsive and a powerful force for your brand. And the more, of course, the more effective it is, the more it's on TV, the more audiences are seeing it and hearing all about the great work you do. A little bit of a cheeky free tip now, which is if your brand team and your chief exec love your ad, it may not get the best response. We want them to be a little bit uncomfortable with it. We really do. We want them to feel just a little bit, oh, I like it, but oh, you know, it might be pushing it a little far, because actually that probably means you've just got the right balance between, I guess, what they're about and what you know you need to get response. But always within your brand values. That's really important. We're not suggesting for 1 minute you go against your brand values, which are really what you're all about. The best brand advocates are often your own people, just to say, they really are. So look within your organisation. We often use brand people, we often have used workers as spokespeople for our adverts, and they work really well as a technique, but also about embodying your brand. So here are 4 examples, and you'll get the chance to look at them when you see the advert. But we have everything from a doctor in the field of Medicine Sans Frontières to London's Air Ambulance pilot who talks very passionately, really lovely Salvation Army officer Major Joe, and sense worker who works really closely with children. These are all real people who really work for these organisations. Tip 8, coming on to the voiceover now, and the words. As a writer, this feels very important to me, but it often gets overlooked. If your agency or your creatives send you a script, you will read it. Of course you'll read it, but don't just read it, speak it. Say the words out loud, because those words are not written to be read. They're written to be heard. So get a sense of that rhythm, get a sense of that pace, and keep an eye on the length of the ad, because at every stage the script gets amends, I can guarantee more words will be added in. And what you're going to end up with is an ad that's going to be really tight on timing, and you just need to allow gaps for music and emotion. Think about the voiceover who's going to embody your brand, whether it's somebody within your organisation or an actor. You want somebody who you feel can really bring your brand to life through their voice, and shouldn't be at odds with it in any way. So just bear that in mind. And talking of actors, if you are going to use an actor for a voiceover, they do add a lot of added emotion, and I would say credibility. If they're a recognisable name, I don't think there's any harm in that. I think they are, particularly if they really connect with your brand. And interestingly, most well-known actors will forego repeat fees, so you can normally get them just for the price of the session, which is only a few £100s. So it's not a lot of money to get, to get some incredible actors who really live and breathe your words and bring the advert to life. I love the bit when the voiceover comes in, because it kind of all connects everything together. Tip 9 is around music, and far too often music becomes an afterthought in DRTV. It's when you've got the edit all together and then somebody goes, oh, hang on a minute, we need to think about music. I think it's quite important to start thinking about music right at the start, right? Really, when you've got your proposition and you're beginning to develop a brief. I always like to find a piece of music, and I actually listen to it as I'm developing a script. It doesn't always end up as a final piece of music, but it really helps me get into the emotional mood and the mind frame, and it helps with the journey that I want to take my audience on. And a really good example of that was the Children with Cancer Bell advert, where we actually pitched for it originally and we created a mood film. And for the mood film, we found a lovely piece of music, which was by Snow Patrol, called Run, a really well-known piece. And it had a fantastic uplift in it, which really suited the moment of the child ringing the bell. And we got it for the mood film. The client loved it. And as we were developing the ad, the client said, we really want that music for the ad. We were a little bit worried because they're a very well-known band. But, we negotiated hard, a fantastic cause, and we got it, which is absolutely brilliant. But moving across to that little animated screen grab you can see there, with clients like Plan, for example, and you may have the same, they know they have on their books composer who can help and who's keen to help out with the edits. So what's great about that is you get your own piece written for the advert. So all the ups and the downs and the little notes are all in there to match the edit. And that's a fantastic way to do it because you've got a bona fide kind of made to measure piece of music. So what we do in those instances, first of all, we make sure that the composer understands this is DRTV, very important, and they understand the principles that we're trying to get across. And then we give them a very, very quite a well-worded written brief on what the kind of sound we want. We might send them some inspirational things, anything to get them close to what we're after. And then, of course, we send them an initial edit for them to put their music to. And that can work really well. But then moving to the bottom left, music libraries. So to be blunt, a lot of the ads we do, the music comes from music libraries. Don't underestimate how brilliant they are. They're not expensive, but they have really, really great pieces of music. Audio networks when we use a lot. They're fantastic. They have all different kinds of music, happy, sad, joyful, pensive. You do have to wade through them. There's a lot of tracks there. But there are some absolutely brilliant ones that are almost made for DRTV. And we used a really strong one for Concern, actually. And I think with Concern, I believe we used two different tracks. We used one for the emotional part of the ad. And then as we got into the solution section, we found another piece that was more uplifting. So you can do things like that. So don't think you have to go and get it composed or find a famous track. There are really great music pieces out there from libraries. Or you may decide to be brave and actually not have any music at all, just really strong sound effects or perhaps human voices. And what that does in your ad is it really cuts your ad through. It really, really does. It can add a huge amount of drama. I would just have an open mind about it. Sometimes it can work brilliantly. Other times it feels like you're possibly missing the added emotion of music. There's no hard and fast rules. Just try it against your edit or talk to your agency or creative people and perhaps experiment it. It doesn't cost anything to experiment. And it's amazing the difference it makes, actually, having a particular piece of music or no music at all. Finally, tip 10, if at first you don't succeed, don't panic. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know, TV, we don't always succeed first time with TV, even when you put everything into place that you think you've done, you get it out there and it's not quite got the results you hope for. Hopefully this doesn't happen very often, but I would say if it does, really don't panic about it, because often tiny changes can make a huge difference, actually. So to respond, so take it off air and just have a look at it. Have a little look at it. Try and look at it sort of with an open mind, because the trouble is, it's like having a baby. We've given birth to a beautiful baby, and you know the baby hasn't had the response that we hoped. So you just have to then take a step back and go, hang on. So did I make it simple and clear enough? Have you got the right balance between the problem and the solution? Not too much of one, not too much of the other. Are your calls to action working hard enough? Are they hidden away and far too subtle? Is your amount the right level? Maybe you're asking for too much and you're putting people off. Maybe you're not asking enough for the big job that you say that you need help with. So once you've reviewed it, and then I would think, you know, go back in there. I would probably always say simplify your message, because usually that is the reason why that is not working so well. So simplify. You may need to find stronger need shots or stories. It's normally the need shots that, you know, that do add the extra oomph that you need to get that response. You might want to test a different ad length as well. I mean, again, we found this, a 90-second ad could do all right, but if you cut it down to a 60, the ROI actually makes it work much better. And actually it suits the creative better at that length as well. Or conversely, it may be that you've not spent enough time explaining why you need support. That often happens with a regular giving advert. So just have a little think around the length of it, and always consider that maybe the voiceover or music could help, because they're such key parts of the ad, they can make a big difference. And I think even if you've done all that and perhaps put it back and it's still, might have working a bit better, but it's still not setting the world on fire, maybe it's time to rethink. But I would say, don't say TV isn't for you. Please don't say that, because we have seen, we've helped charities out who haven't, it's not worked on TV, and we've talked to them, we've looked at re-edits, we've looked at starting again from scratch, and then they've gone on to be really successful. So if you just want an impartial view, or a conversation with us, totally off the record, you know, we'd love to help. I'd really love to talk to you personally, because I love nothing more than getting DRTV ads to work, because it's so much better than winning an award, isn't it? Let's be honest, just knowing that you're making a huge difference and that you're helping. So I hope that I did all that in 20 minutes. Looking at my watch, I probably did or didn't, I don't know. Anyway, hopefully you got lots of inspiration there. I hope so. And also there'll be a link to adverts, some of the adverts that we shared with you today. So do have a look at those if you'd like to see them. The next webinar is next Wednesday, and it's in Men Tribute Funds. So we're looking forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot.